This here's Kyell Gold,
And this is K.M. Hirosaki joining him.
we are recording a little podcast here because everyone else is doing it. We figured we'll talk about writing and the fandom and furry smut and anything else that we have a hankering to talk about. So we'll kick it off. Hirosaki-san here is back from Anthrocon. I believe
That's
it
right.
was his first official appearance as an otter at this particular convention. So if he wants to, I'd like to ask him a few questions about it and just have him tell us how it all went. And
All right. Yeah, no. Do you want me to go into it first and then ask me questions, or?
I'll go into it and I'll interrupt you.
Oh, thanks. I thought interruptions were bad, especially in this sort of thing.
No,
Uh,
Dead Space is bad.
oh yeah, no, Dead Space is bad. You keep me talking because that's always so difficult. Um, but
That's
no,
why
yeah.
this is going to be great.
So yeah, this I had my first official capacity visit to Anthrocon. I did a bit of a book signing for X, which had its debut release there. Unfortunately, the timing was a bit off, and I think a lot of people didn't know I was there. So I know a lot of people were looking for me and said, "Oh, I wasn't able to find you," but I was there, and I met at least some of the folks out there, and it was really nice. I got to talk to a lot of nice people. Um, yeah, the convention itself was really cool. I got to. I had one of the few travel stories that wasn't full of horror and mishap.
Yeah, I heard there was a lot of weather issues.
Yeah, like getting in on Thursday night, I thought that our slight 1 hour delay was, oh, we're gonna get in late and people are waiting for us for dinner, and everyone's gonna have to delay because of us. And half of the people that I was supposed to meet didn't even get in until 1 o'clock in the morning the following day. So just to show how much trifling it was, just being late by an hour was about the least of anyone's worries I heard about getting in.
So when you had the sign-in for the book, which I'm happy to say the reception seems to be pretty good to it so far.
Yeah.
Um, did a lot of people seem just really excited about it, or how was it sort of like, well, I'm buying another book and the author's here, and
I was actually surprised at the sort of attitude that I picked up from folks. Like, a lot of people seem to have heard about it, and I think that it just goes to show. I know that all of the writers who contributed to it sort of helped do our own sort of publicity blast for
Mhm.
it, and that seems to have worked because I heard a lot of people talking about it, and a lot of people not at the official signing would catch me in the hallways and other convention areas and would have their books out. They're like, oh, like, I haven't gotten your autograph yet, and they were going around collecting autographs from everyone who was at the convention, and so there was a lot of excitement about it. It was really rewarding to see that people were taking a book so seriously, and that was like one of the big hits of the con was this written work. So I was really pleased to see that.
That's fairly impressive.
Yeah.
Very glad to hear that too. Sad that I couldn't be there to see the debut, but I'm having my fill of conventions later on in the summer. We're going out to Denver at the beginning of August, and then up to Seattle in September. And
I had dinner
uh,
tonight. One of my friends is trying to convince me into going to Rainforest actually, and I'm starting to heavily consider it actually. I know I haven't told you that yet, so
I know this is a surprise. That'll
I
be
know.
fun.
I hope I can make it. I mean, I should be able to. I'm looking at my personal schedule and my real life work schedule, and it looks like it should work out. And I mean, I don't think that getting from here to Seattle should be too much of a problem. So I'm
No, the fares are pretty cheap actually if you buy them well in advance too.
yeah, and it's not too far in advance. Right now, I'm also trying to plan to get to MFF, which I'm having a bit of a snag trying to find room space for that because I was planning it so late. I'd spent the first half of the year stressing out about whether or not I'd actually be able to go to Anthrocon, that my MFF planning sort of went by the wayside, and of course, by the time Anthrocon was over, MFF was already all booked up, and so plans for that are a bit sketchy. Folks that I might have been traveling with have decided that they're not going to go, and so on the upshot, I'm just traveling by myself, but on the downside is most of the room spaces seem to be full, so I have to find somebody who'll take me.
Well, I don't know about MFF, but at least Rainforest should be Rainforest should be good. I think they told me that the con rate rooms were all sold out at the Marriott,
Oh, okay.
but it's still not that expensive to stay there. We're actually going in. We're getting in late Friday night because between taking off a week for Camp Farrell and um, all the other traveling we're doing this year, vacation days are hard to come by. But
Whereas I have too many vacation days. It's that stubborn Japanese work ethic I have where I never think to take time off, and so it all builds up, and I'm fortuitously left with time and hopefully money.
yeah, the trade-off I always found is that when you have a job that pays you well, you end up not having enough vacation to use the money, and then when you have a lot of vacation, you end up not having the money to use it. Um, so what else went on at Anthrocon in terms of you said X was one of the big hits, which is great to hear, but what else did you hear a lot about there?
Let's see. So there was X that was big. I know a lot of Heat Six was also a big seller. And as I was going over it, I actually realized that, which is kind of unusual, that I actually wasn't familiar with most of what was in it. Usually in advance, I sort of at least know the names of the contributors and what sort of stories are going to be in it. And I actually still haven't read most of it yet, so I should probably do that. I'm slacking in my writerly diligence by not keeping up with my fellow writers. So um, let's see, there was that.
Yeah, I will say I've read through Heat Six, and the stories in general are pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, oh, as always, not including any judgment on mine, but people who have read it seem to have enjoyed it, and it's a short short story that takes place entirely within the span of a blowjob, which was an idea that we discussed a couple years ago, and I finally got around to writing the story about it.
That was like right when I first met you, wasn't it?
I think it was a couple years after. I don't think we were talking about blowjobs when I first met you.
I don't know. We. Uh, it was. I want to say it was when it was in the first year of us knowing each other. That goes back a ways.
I would say it was after the first year, but not
Maybe
too much. I would say it was between the first and second.
it wasn't any longer than 2 years.
Well, this is going to be such a fascinating podcast for people to listen to. My God.
It's the most boring blowjob conversation ever. Here we are.
But yeah, Heat Six. I read it. Foosball has a really good story in it. Trying to think what else stood out for me. That was the one I think that stood out. Um,
I've been talking to Foosball just a little bit lately. I've heard his name pop up a lot, so I've started to just sort of comment on some of the stuff that he's been writing and following up online. Seems like a decent enough fella.
yeah, been chatting a little bit with him as well. Um,
But yes, what else at Anthrocon? Heathen City issue 2 was another one of the big ones. I know that I saw a bunch of people carting that around. I actually haven't read that yet either. I haven't really done any reading at all since the con. I've been really, really busy with work. Is the downside of all that. Which is one of the things. Whenever I go to a convention, I get super, super energized about writing and being like all creative and whatnot. And this year, I have all the energy and I don't have the time to do anything with it. It's making me a little crazy. I had last week at work. I had a bit of a not a breakdown. I had just sort of like this anger management crisis that I had to try to keep to myself a lot. I was starting to lose it.
yeah, I know when I don't get time to write, I get really cranky, and people don't like to be around me, which fortunately gives me time to write. So it all works out.
Yeah, I have this one angry coworker I actually get to share things with. We'll go out and get coffee together and just sort of have cathartic griping sessions back and forth. But no, a lot of times, especially if I'm feeling like I'm overworked, I'll maybe sometimes unofficially use time where I'm on the clock to work on stories while I'm at my desk. And
Oh heavens, I had never done anything like
no,
that.
never. I'm sure you haven't. You're always a beacon of something. That would have been an awesome joke if I could have come up with it right now.
Be a beacon.
Be a beacon, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about conventions, and it's why I really enjoy going to them. Is just seeing what everyone else is doing and getting inspired by all the creativity in this fandom is amazing. And again, as I've said several times, that's why I wanted to put together the anthology of X to begin with, was because there was so much talent out there. And um, I thought people who like your stuff and my stuff would probably also like Poet Tigress's stuff, and people who like Fuzzwolf's stuff would probably enjoy, you know, God, what is his name? White Yodi. He's gonna kill me now. Um,
He's going to kill me for not helping and making you suffer.
but uh, but yeah, you come back from a convention and you just have so many. Man, we could do this. We could do this. This would be great. Um, and yeah, it's just a great time. It's very much worth taking a weekend out, and even apart from seeing all your friends and whatnot.
Oh, and speaking of sort of the creative works that you see at cons, there was this. I'm kicking myself because I can't remember the actual publisher, but there's actually this new furry tabletop RPG that came out called Shard, which this was. It wasn't their debut. They had. It's still very new. They had just brought it to Origins, which is a gaming convention that's. I think it was the last week of June, so it was like the week before Anthrocon or 2 weeks before Anthrocon, and they'd been selling it there, and then they just sort of brought their stock from there to Anthrocon, and as I hear it from talking to the folks who were selling it, they didn't expect it. Like they sold out before the weekend was halfway over, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't realize that furries would be so interested in gaming." And I'm like, "Oh, we're a bunch of nerds, and we will buy almost anything if you slap animal people on it." So
yeah, no kidding.
So
What is a tabletop RPG? Is that when you're not allowed to sit around on the floor and play?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I was gaming yesterday, and there was 8 of us in the same room, and we had the one fellow sitting like right in the middle of the floor, just sort of with his head poking up over the table, and that. See, that's another mental image that should be more sexual than it is, but not in this case. I don't want this to be.
Oh,
a
no,
sexy
if his head
mental
was
image.
poking up over the table.
Yeah. Poking under the. Nah.
So what do you? So
That's a different kind of role playing.
So when you say tabletop RPG,
Like pen and paper RPG, like Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of thing, as opposed to like online
as opposed to a
RPing,
computer.
which is,
Okay.
yeah, or
Got
like like a video game RPG, like Final Fantasy or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
And actually, I didn't get a copy because they only took cash, and I showed up on Friday, and I was like, it looked really interesting. The production values were really nice. It was really pretty book, really well made. And I'm like, oh, I'll come back, later when I actually have cash in my wallet, because the ATM fees at convention centers are never kind. And I showed up on Sunday to buy a book, and they were all out. Like they had just sold out, like about 20 minutes before I came by. And I was all sad, but they should be getting them back into stock in like 6 weeks or so.
Did you shake your fist and stare at the ceiling and go, shards?
Considering the way that Anthrocon's dealer room is set up, that would actually be your voice would carry pretty far, because it's got this big hanger ceiling, and I'm willing to bet that
Does anyone actually make use of the vertical space?
I know Fur Planet has tall banners that run up the wall behind where they have their table, but beyond that, nothing really scales upwards. Although there is sort of this upper level where you can see up into this sort of causeway across the convention center, where you can see the fursuit parade before it comes into the dealer's den. And actually, that's the other thing. The fursuit parade this year was huge. It was like 650 suits, which is just gigantic. And we're watching it come in through the dealer's room, and we're like, okay, this has to be over. But then you're looking up on the causeway, you can see that they're still coming, and they have to go all the way down these stairs and come around. So you can gauge about how long is left, and so the fact that you've got this visual image, like, okay, we're going to be here for a while.
Wow. Well, so since this is ostensibly a podcast about writing, I think why don't we talk a little bit about what projects we're working on, and just people know how to get in touch with us online, and if they want to ask us questions, we can address writing questions in future podcasts, and otherwise we'll just talk about stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
So what are you working on?
What am I working? So I'm working on this project, which I know you know about. I've been working on it touch and go for about 2 or 3 years or so, and haven't really dug it up in about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I know which one
I
that
know,
is.
yeah, and I know you know which one it is. I'm finally getting that dusted off. It's sort of a longer work that has gone neglected. Um, Folks who've been reading my stuff lately have probably noticed that I've been writing a lot of really short stories lately. I know, like the latter half of last year and earlier this year, I did a lot of stories that were like between 2,000 and 5,000 words, which is that's pretty short, especially for me. I tend to go on for ages and ages
No.
and pages, full of dripping with pathos and dripping with other things. But no,
Those are
so
the
yeah,
best kinds of
there's
stories.
that I'm working on, and I'll just be a naughty little tease and not say anything more about that other than it's a long time in the making, and it might not be finished anytime soon, but I think that it will be a fairly major announcement when it's done.
I think it'll be totally worth it when we finally get around to letting you tell people.
I think it'll be worth it. I'm actually really curious to see what the reaction is going to be because I think that when the idea for this first conceptualized, the furry writing world and the furry reading world was very different. It's changed a lot over the past 2 years.
That's very true,
Certainly
actually.
for the better. I've waxed philosophical on that enough in my journal, but I just for to sum up here, I just think that over the last couple of years, it's really obvious that people are taking that sort of thing seriously now, and that it's gone back to being a major part of the sort of like the fandom's creative outlet and what people are looking for. And I saw a
Well,
lot of that at like at Anthrocon
it's
with
funny you say has gotten back to because I don't think it ever really was a major part of the fandom's creative outlet. I mean, from the very early days, it was all about the artwork. It was all about the comics and the there were short stories, sure. There was Elf Sternberg had a following with his online stuff, but there were you know up until Sofwolf started putting out books, there was maybe Paul Kidd had a couple things up on Amazon, but you couldn't find more than a handful of people who would have read them, at least not in the circles I traveled in.
yeah, I guess I'm sort of thinking back to when I was stuck in the frozen backwaters of Japan and had not a lot to do with my time other than to perform, online archaeology. And so I was digging up a lot of old stuff, which probably, covered a longer period of time than I was accounting for. So it seemed like a lot more. It was probably just really stretched out
Well, so I
and
think there
spread
was always
thin.
some writing in the fandom, but
Yeah.
I think it was mostly some people would post some writing in, for them and their friends, and it would not become the kind of popular currency that it's become in the fandom today. Um, just again, some of the books that are out and some of the magazines that are out, it's really taken off, and it's been very gratifying to be a part of it. Um, just the number, and I've said this many times, but the number of emails I get that people say, I haven't read a book in 10 years, but I picked up one of your books and read it and I loved it. I'm like, well, what I would love is for that person to then say, hey, maybe there's some other books that I'd like to read and pick up another furry book, or read my journal, read the forums on the website and see what books other people are recommending, because there's a ton of good stuff out there. I mean, you could spend your entire day reading and not get through all the good books there are to read. Every time I go to a bookstore, it makes me sad.
I have this stack of books. Actually, I have two stacks of books. I have one in my living room and my bedroom of books that I need to get to, and I'm getting to them very slowly. And then what'll happen is, I'm like, I'll have something on deck and I'll end up reading something else that wasn't even in the stack. So I'm still reading something, but I'm not making progress on my backlog.
I know how that goes. So what I'm working on, people are probably pretty aware of the fact that I have a draft of a new novel in the works. Shadow of the Father takes place in the same universe as Vol and Pendant of Fortune and Prisoner's Release. It takes place about 16 years, no, 15, 16 years after the end of Pendant of Fortune, and the main character is Vol's son, and he runs into a whole mess of trouble. So I'm getting ready to start the final round of edits on that. Uh, I had some emails with Sarah Palmer today, and she is getting ready to do the artwork for
Oh,
it,
good.
so we're all set there. I've also been thinking. I don't know if you remember the erotic furry writing group and the challenge that they
Oh,
used to
I
have that was
remember. Yep.
every 3 weeks. I dug up a bunch of the stories that I wrote for that, and I've been thinking about posting some of them because I still like the way some of them came out, and they're at the very least they're interesting pieces to see what someone could write in 3 weeks.
I don't even know if I ever actually entered any of those. I might have entered one of
I
them.
think you did. I think there was
Like,
one story you did.
I know I was following along with it, and one of the like five people who was even active regularly in the group, but I don't remember
Yeah, it's
entering.
basically most weeks it's me and Klesk
Oh
Vadrigar,
yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't
remember
remember his
him.
name. Klesk.
I haven't
Sorry,
I haven't
Klesk.
seen his name pop up in a while.
I follow him on FA.
Oh, okay.
He's posted a couple things. I believe he's in New York now.
Oh, okay.
Um, but so I've been thinking about posting a couple of those, and writing a couple uh, other stories, and of course have to start actually writing the first draft of the sequel to Out of Position, which is proven to be a lot of fun. I love the characters, and it's just uh, feels like going home again to get back to their points of view.
I know. I can't wait for you to write that. I'm gonna.
I can't wait for me to write it.
I'm gonna selfishly say in front of all these fine people that I appreciate that I'll probably get to have a bit of an earlier look than most folks will.
You and Kid will be the first people to get to see it when it's done, because you guys always help make it better.
We should get Kid on here one of these times when we do this. He
You
can be
should.
our special guest.
I think he'd enjoy that. Um, but
Actually, speaking of sneak peek stuff, actually, can I circle back and talk about Shadow of the Father just real quick?
sure,
So, yeah, just sort of.
you can talk about my work as long as you
Oh,
want,
oh,
except
good.
that we're trying to keep this to under half an hour, so we should wrap it up pretty
Oh,
soon.
yeah, no, we're only at 20 minutes. We're good. But no, just sort of what you're saying about that, and because you just sort of to contrast what you said about looking forward to getting back to the characters from Out of Position and sort of getting this sort of familiar, familiar characters to work with, and continue along with this story. And I think that I'm going to be really interested to see what people think of Shadow of the Father because, I mean, with a few exceptions, it's all new characters, and it's the focus. This is certainly the focus is on all new characters, because when you have Vol and Pendant of Fortune, which follow the same characters, and then you had Prisoner's Release, which tells stories about other characters that appear in the world, so that they're still characters that you're familiar with. And so this is going to be, I think, the first one that steps in and really brings a lot of new stuff to the table, and it's thematically, I think, pretty different from the works that center on Vol as well. And
It is because they were largely like romances.
right,
What I consciously tried to do with Shadow was um, make it more of an action novel, make it more so that things happen quickly,
yeah,
and one action follows from another action, follows from another action, and the characters basically have. I think most of the action of the novel takes place over about 2 to 3 days,
yeah,
and the characters barely have time to take a breath.
yeah. And not to give away too much about it, but I will just say that I think that the way that you structured the novel works really well, and I think that the readers will really like that. And I'm not going to give anything away about what you actually did, but I think that the actual storytelling structure was a wise choice. And I think that even the first draft and first few passes that I saw looked really good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it all polished up and put into actual physical dead tree form.
Yeah, so am I. And I'm especially looking forward to seeing what Sarah does with it because um, she has developed a something of an attachment to the world of Algea, which I very thankful for because she was really. responsible for bringing so much life to those first few books. Um, and I'm delighted to have her back to work on this one again.
Yeah,
It's been kind of strange working on the last few books without her, actually.
she's been doing. I've noticed she's been doing a lot of sort of like artwork that features period dress and whatnot lately, and it's been a couple of years since the last of those Argea books were out, so it's been a while since she would have done the art for that. And I'm really curious to see how it's all going to look now. I mean, I'm sure it'll be even better than before, but
Yeah, I still think her cover for Pendant of Fortune was one of my favorite
oh,
one of my favorite
that's
things.
a gorgeous piece of artwork. I like the cover to Prison's Release too. That's
I
really
like that
sweet
one too,
too.
actually. Um, but well, I promise that in future the podcast will not simply be teasing y'all about things that are going to come out in 6 or 12 or 13 or 15 or 18 months.
Isn't teasing what we do?
Well, yes, but
No.
we also have
Well,
to.
we also
part
have
of teasing
we have
is
follow,
gratifying
yeah.
every now and then.
We have
so
follow through. You need follow through.
we always we always take our listeners to the finish. Well, that was terrible.
Well, not everyone can be a college basketball commentator.
Boy.
Was that college basketball or NBA?
No, it was college
Okay,
basketball.
yeah, I thought it was college basketball.
I'm trying to remember now what the phrase was. He has a high, a quick. He can penetrate anytime he wants.
Yeah,
He has
like a nice build up and a high arcing
arc
release.
and a high arcing shot and a quick release. Yeah, that was funny. But so hey, if anyone's listening and you have questions about writing, we'll take questions about writing, and if you don't send us questions, then we'll just talk about
Yeah, and we can embed our email addresses into the info tag for the actual file, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not a tech wizard. I'm
Kyell G@yahoo.com or Kyell@KyellGold.com. Chances are, if you listen to this, you know it anyway because you would have found it through one of our websites, and most of the people who would be listening initially at least know how to get in touch with us.
Yeah, if somebody stumbled across us by accident, I'd be almost worried.
Although it's been pretty tame, except for, a little bit about blowjobs in the middle.
In the future, we'll need to bring blowjobs into it more often.
I agree.
Like when I'm at work and stuck in meetings.
That's when you need your wishing fox.
Yes, this is what we're talking about teasing our listeners and our readers.
Yeah.
So we have listeners and readers both now. We're branching
Hopefully.
out.
We don't yet, but hopefully after this is posted, we will.
Okay, yeah, that's legitimate. I guess if we're thinking in terms of internet podcast time, the now to us it's a relativistic change.
And the other thing we need a name of something to call this podcast. So if anyone has suggestions for that, email them to me or email them to Hirosaki-san over there, and we will sift through the suggestions, always excepting we don't come up with one of our own. And I don't really have anything else to go on with right now.
No, and I think we've hit a good mark. I think we have a good initial outing to sort of get out there what we're all about,
so to speak.
No, I think we've both already written that story, haven't we?
Many times.
Many times.
I did that post recently on why coming out stories are so resonant with people, and that generated some interesting
You got some good
responses.
replies to that.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think I replied to it myself.
No, but we talked about it.
Yeah, that was back during my I'm too busy with work phase.
It's it's really really interesting the way the different cultures view things like that. But I don't want to go into that right now.
That'll be a potential future topic.
It'll be potentially something for the future.
I can talk about homosexuality in Japan or something. That might be.
Oh, that'd be
that
awesome.
would be interesting. Depends on who you ask. Some people will say that they don't.
Wow. Well, we certainly have it here, and I'm very thankful for that.
I wish I could just do a thumbs up through the microphone, but I can't. So pretend you can see me giving a thumbs up right now. I'm actually doing it anyway. I'm miming it just for Kyell, so he can laugh at me.
Oh, I wouldn't laugh at you. Well, not about that. All right. Well,
Okay, I guess this is
I signed on, so I'll let you sign
all
off.
right. So, on behalf of Kyell and myself, I wish you happy listening, happy future reading.